We finally made it to the final two division previews, the most important and unquestioned, quote unquote, two best divisions in the league. That's the NFC North and the NFC West. It's time to take an unbiased view of our favorite teams and their main rivals, starting with the suddenly stout NFC Norris division, as Chris Berman would say. This is the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. I'm Erik Stenholm, joined by Joey Moore, as always. We got to preview our teams here and try to be unbiased, but I look at the NFC North right now, and all of a sudden, this has gone from, a division on a year in, year out basis where the Lions are a doormat, the Bears can't find a quarterback, the Vikings, for the most part, are mediocre to good, and the Packers, have had elite quarterback play. It's been basically the same story for damn near 25 years. All of a sudden, we got a pretty damn good division here, and it starts with the Detroit Lions. Joey, I'll let you start it off the top. Where do you have Detroit finishing, and what are your thoughts on them after they came very, very close to beating your Niners in the NFC Championship last year?
Yeah, they should have been in the Super Bowl. No, I think they're fantastic. I think they're really good. If Dan Campbell could just ease up on the hit me on blackjack, I think they could be okay.
Stand on 17, Dan.
Yeah. No, they're really good. They're really good everywhere. They're really good where it's important. The line of scrimmage, offensive line is good. Defensive line is good, at least much improved. The only thing has really been their secondary, a little bit of Achilles heel, but, they could run the heck out of the ball. Ben Johnson returning is huge.
I figured after last season he would have got a head coaching job. Having him there is still amazing.
It's huge. Jared Goff is, pretty much a career renaissance there. And harp on it all the time, but as the director of vibes, I guess, they got him. Although maybe not all of them. Can't feel good coming out.
They got a lot of them.
Game. I saw, receivers, and that was cool if you're a Niner fan that game, but damn. You don't automatically get back to that point.
Right.
You don't get to start there. But yeah, I think they're really good. I think they finished 12-5 in the division. A very good division.
Okay, I got them at 11-6. I also have them winning the division. Last year they were 5th on offense, 23rd on defense. I want to talk about the defense real quick. So they added DJ Reader, Carlton Davis, and Terrion Arnold. Obviously, Arnold, the first-round pick, hoping to solidify the secondary. They were number 27 against the pass last year. You mentioned their defensive line. Excellent defensive line against the run. Against the pass, secondary was bad, and other than Hutchinson, they didn't create a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I think it has a chance, a small chance, but not a significant chance, to be their Achilles heel again, to the point where, hey, maybe they really slip and go to 9-8 or 10-7. If, again, say they're 27th against the pass again this year. That's something that in a division where, big things are expected of Caleb Williams. We now know Jordan Love is a pretty good quarterback after going into last season thinking he was a bum. Detroit's schedule is going to be more difficult. The division is going to be a little bit more difficult. The passing offenses they face are going to be a little bit more difficult. I think they addressed it a little bit. I don't think they addressed it enough. Their offense, they added Zeitler. He's the only new starter. He's an excellent offensive line. They already had top 3 offensive line in the league, and then they add Zeitler to it. It's the embarrassment of riches there is just off the charts. So they're going to control the line of scrimmage on offense, and what an amazing place to start if you're an offensive coordinator. I think they'll be top 10 again on offense, probably top 6, 7. My only question is, and I pose this to you, Joey, where do you rank Goff? Because I've seen, all these top quarterback lists by ESPN and The Athletic, and I listened to this VSiN podcast, and they did that recently, and it's people vary so wildly on quarterbacks these days. Goff was great last year. He was pretty good the year before. The 2 years before that, he was awful. It's would you put him? I think I have him 13th. Some people have him as high as 7th. If you go down the list, do you think Goff is good enough to win the Super Bowl with this Lions team, or do you think it's one of those things where it needs to be basically a perfect break situation like last year where, the first round they played the Rams and got through it. The second round, they got an amazing draw by getting Tampa Bay, who nobody thought would be there. And then his second half against the Niners in the championship game, like, kind of exposed Goff a little bit. Like, where do you rank Goff? Are you confident in him, being able to get to that next level with Detroit?
I'm probably more pro Goff than most people. I probably would still have him like 12th, 13th, like you. I'm not putting him in the top 7. But I'm also not even thinking about putting him like 20th.
Mm-hmm.
He played really well. I mean, yes, he's got a great team, but there's not very many really good quarterbacks that don't have a good team or don't have good help.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely could win the Super. They should have won it. I mean, they should have won the Super Bowl last
Mm-hmm.
year. I mean, if they would have played Kansas City, again, I thought the Niners were going to win. I still think the Niners are a better team. They weren't that game, and they don't get to hoist a banner. But Detroit, I would have picked Detroit. They already, I mean, again, different game, different time of the calendar, but they already went to Kansas City and beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Of course they can. Of course they can. And he played. I thought against the Niners he played very well. Granted, they ran the ball and killed us there, but at the second half he had it I think it was Josh Reynolds. I mean, there's one. It was like third and long. It hit him right in the numbers and just dropped it. And one of the fourth down ones, I think it was Josh Reynolds. Yeah, it's a tough catch, but Goff put it where you wanted. That goes under a loss for him in his playoff career. That's not on him.
Mm-hmm.
Kick the ball, Dan. I really like you, but kick the ball.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
it's a Purdy-like situation.
I still have him the best quarterback in the division. I still think he's better right now than Jordan Love.
Mm-hmm.
Can Jordan Love be better than him this year in his career? Sure he can. All the talent's there. But Jordan Love's first half last year was what are we looking at?
Mm-hmm.
And then he figured it out and had a great game against Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, people talk about him. I mean, the couple of picks he threw against the Niners were not good.
Mm-hmm.
That pick, I believe, could be wrong, but the one he threw at the end of the game was on first down.
Yeah. Yep.
And threw it across his body to nobody. Could have been picked off by two guys, and we're just oh, put your MVP bets for him. Okay, could happen, I guess, But
he had so much.
Jared Goff went to the same place in a bigger game and should have played better and should have won.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree where I think, Goff at his worst right now with this era of quarterbacks, 15th, 16th, at his best, he can be 7th, 8th, somewhere in there, depending on how he's playing. I think, especially in this division, he's good enough to get it done. He's good enough to be the 2 seed or the 1 seed and host multiple playoff games. He did it last year. He can do it again. I just think that defense might be a little bit of an Achilles heel with that pass D, especially if Terrion Arnold is number 1, not healthy, or number 2, not as effective. I mean, we remember them drafting Jeff Okudah a few years ago, thinking he'd be the next Darrelle Revis, and he was, just an absolute swing and a miss. So we'll see how it goes there in Detroit. I have him 11-6. Joey has him 12-5. We both got him winning the division. Green Bay last year, 12th on offense, 10th on defense. Our biggest rivals in Minnesota. I hate the Packers. I hate that they've always had quarterback stability my entire life. I was born in 92. That was Favre's first season in Green Bay. He was there for 15 years. Then Rodgers was there for 16 years. And finally, last year, I was like, yes, they're going to have a shitty quarterback for the first time in my life. And Jordan Love tied for the league lead in touchdowns thrown. Devastating. I think this team's going to be good again this year. I hate to say it. They were 12th on offense, 10th on defense last year after a really mediocre first half. They completely turned it around in the second half. I got them going 10-7 and making the playoffs. Last year, they were 9-8 and snuck in. I think they're just a little bit better this year. It's still an extremely young, extremely dynamic offense that I think is just going to get better, especially those wide receivers. They add Josh Jacobs to replace Aaron Jones. A little bit younger, a little bit more in the tank. Don't think it's a huge upgrade. The one thing I would say with Green Bay, they were number 28 against the run last year. The only significant guy they added on defense was Xavier McKinney, and he's a safety. So they're going to be bad against the run this year. They're hoping that the new defensive coordinator who comes in, let's see, Jeff Hafley, mean, that sounds like a Packer guy if I've ever heard it, but they had Joe Barry last year, the most hated man in Wisconsin. They finally got him out the door. Packers fans hated that dude. They're hoping they're going to be better this year on defense. I think they'll be bad against the run, probably decent against the pass, especially with the addition of McKinney. But yeah, 10-7 for me. Their over-under's 9.5, by the way, minus 210 to make the playoffs, 12-1 to win the Super Bowl. And just off the top, the Lions their over-under's 10.5, minus 220 to make the playoffs, 10-1 to win the Super Bowl for those of you betting at home. Joey, I got them at 10-7, the Packers. Where do you have them, and what are your thoughts on year 2 of the Jordan Love experience?
I got them also going 10-7. I'm not ready to say they're going to take some big giant leap this year as for last year, but I think they'll be better. I'm just looking for consistency from Jordan Love. You can't have these super high highs and low lows, not just in games, but the whole season. See if they get off to a good start. I think the underrated part is I think their defense is a lot better than most people think, probably. But yeah,
the number 10 scoring defense last year, but number 26 total defense. That shows that they gave up a shitload of yards, but got kind of a little bit lucky. So I see why Packers fans hated Joe Barry.
Yeah, the name's I feel like he was never mind, maybe a different guy. But I found the weird pivot to Josh Jacobs, which I mean, hey, I guess he's an upgrade over Aaron Jones, maybe. But I mean, really good offense, could be top 5 offense in the league when they're humming. But I just got to see it again, Jordan Love, before I ready to think he's the next.
I think they got 4 starting caliber wide receivers, all like under the age of 24. That's huge. I mean, especially when wide receivers
too.
Yeah, they're getting paid huge money, and they got all those guys on rookie deals. That's a big time, thing to have in this modern, day and age in football, where it's, your money is allocated left tackle, right tackle, wide receiver, and quarterback. Everything else just kind of, doesn't get much allocated to it. And then their entire pass catchers room is probably making less than like 25 mil against the cap. So that was their strength last year. It'll be their strength again this year. We'll see if their defense can improve under Halfley and get, just a little bit better, excuse me, to compete with Detroit. I have them finishing a game behind them. Next, let's go to Chicago. This is one where I think we might vary a little bit. We've been basically chalk on I think 5 of the 6 divisions. We differed wildly on the AFC East. Been watching a lot of Hard Knocks. The Bears come in with an over-under at 9, minus 115 to make the playoffs, 45-1 to win the Super Bowl. Last year they were 18th on offense, 20th on defense. Completely rebuilt offense, mostly the same defense that they had last year that finished 20th. Huge expectations on Caleb Williams, that new offense with Roma Dunze and Keenan Allen, and they brought in Swift to be the starting running back. I mean, Gerald Everett, all these guys, like, the expectations are sky high, and I'm not buying it, not just because the vibes I get from Hard Knocks are a little bit odd, but because it's the Bears, man. Like, I have to physically see it, just like you with the Jets. I have to see it to believe it. Like, I have to see Williams succeed, 7-8 games into the season and start to look like a legit, not necessarily CJ Stroud level, but a good quarterback to believe that this is possible. I have them going a very generous 8-9 because they do have a very light schedule. I think if they had an average schedule, maybe I'd have them 6-11, 7-10. Very easy schedule. So I got them going 8-9. I got them missing the playoffs. I got their under as one of my best bets. Joey, what do you think about year 1 of the Caleb Williams era in Chicago?
I'm not too far off. I got them going 7-10.
Okay.
I got to see it. They've actually, I mean, it's just preseason, but I think Caleb Williams has looked better than I thought he would in the first couple of games. It's hard to go from where they have been to where the expectations kind of are. Roma Dunze, then the Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, that's really good group. I I like their tight end Cole Kmet. I like DeAndre Swift. I mean, he's probably not like a top tier running back, but I mean,
He's going to be running angry. We know that.
Yeah. I think their defense. I mean, I think Eberflus, has the defense, in a good spot, but yeah, I this talk of the playoffs is kind of wild to me.
So last year they were number 25 against the pass, and they added Byard, and that's it. That was the only addition to that defense. Their first three picks.
He was traded and then like abysmal for Philly.
He was awful for Philly. They have made no other additions on defense. Their 3 first draft picks, which were the number 1 and number 9 overall for Williams and Adunze, and then their third round pick was also on offense. But they had 5 draft picks total. 1 was on defense, and then they added Byard. That's all that came in this year to a team that was 25 against the pass last year. The defense is going to be average at best. Williams is going to have to hit the ground running real quick. I would say if you're at week 8, week 9, and he's putting up pedestrian numbers week in, week out, all-out panic is coming in Chicago. As Joey says, a lot of tight butts coming in Chicago in the second half. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on this team. You watch Hard Knocks, you understand this is kind of like the Jets last year, a destitute franchise that always sucks, finally gets something shiny, and like, man, they got to start out like 5-2 or something, or otherwise this is going to be, typical Chicago. That watch them lose at home to Green Bay, and the fans just completely unravel. Like, it's a tradition unlike any other. I got them going 8-9. Joey's got them going 7-10. We'll discuss them later in Jack and the Bum of the Week and my You Like That picks of the week, because Chicago is just, I want to fade them really, really bad. Let's go to the Vikings. My Vikings. Over under 6.5, plus 230 to make the playoffs, 80-1 to win the Super Bowl. This is really the first time since the 2014 season that the Vikings have been in a rebuild. Basically, 2015 when we won the division through last season, there's been, decent quarterback play to great quarterback play. Lots of good Zimmer defenses, lots of good O'Connell offenses. There's always been something to look forward to since that 2014 season, Zimmer's first, where we drafted Teddy. There was a lot of playing guys like Matt Castle and Christian Ponder, and it was a rebuilding team. So it's been a decade for me since we've been in this kind of situation where our over/under is so low. I think we're going to go over it. I got us going 8-9. I had us going 9-8 before the McCarthy injury. I downgraded to 8-9 after that. I do think McCarthy's going to be really good. It's just an absolute shame he got injured. The strength of this team is going to be the defense. Last year, they were 13th on defense after being 31st the year before. For Flores to get that team from 31st to 13th in 1 year, and then we added everybody on defense in this offseason, including the number 1 defensive player on most people's draft boards in Dallas Turner. You look at some other guys on this defense, so possibly 6 new starters. Versatility everywhere. You got year 2 of Flores. I would say 5 starting caliber safeties on this team. So Gilmore was just signed. He'll be a starting corner. Shaq Griffin will be a starting corner. Fabian Moreau, they think, will probably win the nickel job ahead of Byron Murphy, he gets paid a lot. He has not been a very good player in his time in Minnesota. And then Jihad Ward, who pretty well. This guy, Jonah Williams, is really impressed in camp. And then obviously Grenard, who's our biggest signing of the offseason, will take the Daniil Hunter role. We added Van Ginkel for depth. We added Blake Cashman for depth. It's a completely stacked unit. I think we will have a top 5 offense. That's my bold prediction for the year for the Vikings. We're going to have a top 5 defense, top 5 defense, without a doubt. I think this is a massive strength. However, I'm very skeptical of Sam Darnold. That's why we're 8-9 in my projections, because I just don't see a scenario where Darnold, Mullins, whoever plays quarterback. There was a rumor that we might try to trade for Russell Wilson. God help me if that happens. I think the offense will be, you can't be bad when you have that good of pass catchers. If Jones goes down, we essentially have no running game. Interior of the offensive line is in complete shambles. Ed Ingram is awful. Dalton Reisner, who I want to start, has had back problems all camp. He's not going to be ready to start the season. I think he's our best interior offensive lineman, so he's hurt. Another year, Garrett Bradbury, who just isn't very good at center. I got us going 8-9. I need an unbiased look at it. Joey, where do you have the Vikings this year?
It really all hinges on Sam Darnold, really. I mean, I agree with you about the defense. I think the defense is going to be pretty darn good. But yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold, I could see him having, I'm not gonna say really good year, just because
He hasn't had one.
Yeah, but like, I mean, he's gonna be better. I think what Minnesota had, other than Kirk last year. I mean, I think he's gonna be better than that. I would expect him to. But yeah, my thing is I think he turns the football over like too much.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the one game he had, like it was like probably his Super Bowl last year, Week 18 against the Rams. The Rams played nobody. He went against Carson Wentz, who's been like the laughing. And Carson, like if you watch that game, you're like, I want Carson.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I to be honest,
going back to USC, he has always turned the ball over every season.
Yeah, but he's still really young, like actual age, not just like young-ish player. Like I don't think he's that much older than like. I would like to see his age.
I think he's in year 6 and he's 26.
Yeah,
like he came out young.
Yeah, but it all hinges on him. I mean, I think they're, he's got a future Hall of Famer to throw the ball to. He's got a really good defense on the other side, and I really like Kevin O'Connell as a coach, play caller, all that stuff. So yeah, it really just is on him.
Mm-hmm.
It is a kick in the dick that McCarthy, done for the year, because I wish I could remember like what I was saying, or like my text or something, because like I really liked Jaden Daniels coming out, but like, and with Bo Nix being in, because I was like, I think Bo Nix is gonna be like, I'm not gonna say he's gonna be like Hall of Famer, but I think I don't think he's gonna bust.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's like consistent. Same thing with JJ McCarthy. You could have, people were like, oh, Michigan, that's why we drafted him, like just to hand the ball. I'm like, I think he's better than what people are saying. So
mm-hmm.
to not see him until next year is a bummer for, I mean, probably obviously Vikings fans, but just everyone else. But yeah, I got them going 8-9 too. I don't think they're going to be like terrible. There's too many.
There's too much talent to be truly bad, unless there's just a glut of injuries. You look at, Jefferson, Hawkinson, Addison, all really good. Hawkinson, they're thinking maybe comes back like week 4, week 6, something like that. Probably one of the. He is always. I mean, that's like, you want to talk about a dirty hit. Well, I'm still mad at Detroit for that game. That was a dirty hit that tore his ACL. Hopefully he's back earlier rather than later. But Darisaw at left tackle, top 5 tackle. Brian O'Neill at right tackle, excellent. It's just left guard, center, right guard, not good. Cornerback. Now that we signed Gilmore, it's the ceiling is much higher than it was. Something's just if you're expecting Sam Darnold, I would take 20 touchdowns, 12 picks, something like that, because I feel like there is a scenario where, number one, he gets hurt, which has happened before. He had mono and missed multiple games. Number two, he could be 8 touchdowns, 15 picks in week 11 or week 10, and it's like, oh my God, put in Nick Mullins, we're so fucked. So it's like, until I see it, I have to expect mediocrity. I think it's another one of those seasons where we're going to be like Pittsburgh. We're going to pick 17th or 14th or 19th and, kick the can down the road, and hopefully McCarthy's ready to roll from week 1 next year as a, top 15 quarterback in the league, because anything else would be just absolutely devastating for the Vikes. But we both have them 8-9. Let's just go over the NFC North picks here before we get to the NFC West. Joey has Detroit at 12-5, Green Bay at 10-7, the Vikings at 8-9, and Chicago at 7-10. I have the same order. I have Detroit 11-6, Green Bay 10-7, Vikings 8-9, and Chicago 8-9. We are not buying Chicago. We like the Viking defense. We really like the offensive core there in Green Bay, and we think Dan Campbell's going to have another season where they compete for a Super Bowl title. That's your NFC North preview here on the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. Let's go to the NFC West. We got to start with the Kings, the reigning NFC champs, the reigning NFC West champs, the San Francisco 49ers, over under 11.5, minus 550 to make the playoffs, the biggest favorite to make the playoffs in the NFL, 6-1 to win the Super Bowl, only behind Kansas City. There's rumors that this may be the last dance. I say rumors of their demise are greatly exaggerated. I think this team is going to be a force for years to come, as long as they got Kyle and Brock Purdy and, at least some of that core there. They got to get the Trent Williams situation snuffed out. They got to get the Brandon Ayuk situation snuffed out. But as long as everybody stays healthy, which for the 49ers has always been a problem, I don't see a scenario where they're not, at least close to the NFC elite. I have them going 13-4. That's tied for the best record in my projections. It's a very tough schedule. It's usually tough.
13-4.
It's usually tough. I hate to do it because, if you remember back to last year's pod, I had the Seahawks going 12-5 and the Niners going 12-5, and the Seahawks winning the division on a tiebreaker because I was so high on that roster in general. I just don't see a way that the Rams or Seattle are even close to the Niners in terms of talent, in terms of coaching, in terms of scheme, and in terms of this is, the Niners window. They're squarely in it. I think Seattle is at the start of a window. I think the Rams are at the end of a window. This is their time. I got them going 13-4. They were third on offense last year, third on defense. Even who's this wide receiver that's just impressing at camp? So it's you've got Samuel and Ayuk, you've got Pearsall, you've got Jawan Jennings.
It's Samuel Senior.
Samuel Senior. I'm sorry.
Number one.
Who's this 4th round pick that everybody's writing about? Is just, oh my god! If he ends up being a guy, it's just this is not fair, dude. How do they keep finding these two?
Well, first off, 13-4. Wow.
You want some of what I'm smoking?
I'm gonna say they're going 12-5, but I honestly, my gut says 11-6.
Okay, it is a tough schedule.
12-5.
Yeah,
just because it's a tough schedule. Injuries always happen. I do think it is a little weird. I'm assuming Trent Williams is there. I think he just doesn't want to be in preseason, which.
Can't blame him.
Well, yeah. Ayuk, at this point, where are you going, man? I feel like if you wanted to be in Pittsburgh, you already would have been there. There's nowhere else for you to go.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this shakes out unless you just want to miss a ton of games and whatever. Yeah, I mean, they're really good. They're really good. I'm saying this this is, in my opinion, again, I think they're the best team in the league. Them in Kansas City. I do think Chris Jones is a better player than even I thought. I know comparing just rosters, because people always say it's like Mahomes against the roster. Chiefs have a pretty good roster.
Yeah.
Even in years past. Anyways,
it's still the best roster in the NFL. It just is. Let's take a quick look at the schedule. So home Jets, at Vikings, at Rams, New England, Arizona, 4-1 in my opinion, maybe 5-0. Then comes a tough stretch at Seattle, home Kansas City, home Dallas. Maybe they get through that 2-1 or so. Then at Tampa Bay, Seattle. Then at Green Bay, at Buffalo. That's pretty tough. But then they finish. It's not bad at all. Chicago, Rams, at Miami, Detroit, at Arizona. I don't know. It is a tough schedule. There are some tough road games in there. At Seattle's always tough. At Green Bay, at Buffalo, sure. At Miami. It's just the roster's so good, unless there's significant.
One thing I got to remember, as a fan, because I'm looking at the schedule, the Chiefs one's interesting because, we could win that game 100-0. It's not going to fix anything that happened, in any of the Super Bowls. But I remember, not last year, but the year before. I think it was. Yeah, not last year, before 22.
That was before our first ever pod.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Jimmy against Kansas City at home. The Niners didn't lose by that much, but it wasn't close. The Chiefs came in here and it was just
they rolled you.
It was McCaffrey's first game. He showed up a couple of, and I'm just like this, like we're just getting reamed, and I don't think that's going to happen again. Because I do think the Niners are. That was with Jimmy, and like offense was harder to come by at the time.
Right.
But like, I don't expect us to win that game. I just don't. Other than that one, every other game, like I'm thinking, oh, in Buffalo, I think that's Sunday Night Football in Buffalo in December. Like, oh, that'd be a tough game. But then, like, I'm just thinking, like, if you're a Buffalo fan, like, holy crap, we got the Niners. Like other teams probably like, wait,
like at Miami late in the season, you're like, oh, that's
like I think
gonna be a
Miami's
tough
a really
game.
good team. Like they could lose that. But then I'm like the objective person to me that has just shit on Tua and Miami for their late season. Like, what's there to be afraid of? You know, I mean they easily could lose. We'll see what happens. But like the other team has to beat them too, which I like as a fan. Again, I don't want to be wrong and my team loses. Like you don't want to be. So I just err like, oh yeah, they could go. You know, I could say they go. I think they go 11-6, but I look at the schedule. I'm like, where are they losing 6 games?
Right.
Like, do I think they go 13-4? That's it.
It's like, yeah, can either the Rams or Seattle win in
Like
Levi's?
Detroit's really good.
You know?
Is Detroit coming in here? I think that's Monday Night Football, like the last Monday Night Football game of the year. Like, is Detroit winning that game? I mean, they should have won. I mean, they could. They very well could. But like, I don't know. So I'll go 12-5.
Okay, 12-5. Let's take a quick look at the team again. The Pastronaut Dobbs is the new backup quarterback. Pearsall is probably wide receiver, maybe wide receiver 4 to start the season, but wide receiver 3.
Stay healthy, he is.
Yeah. Cameron Latu might get some run at tight end with Dwelly gone.
He's terrible.
Yeah. On defense, Devondre Campbell, Malik Collins in, Floyd in as well, Elliott, Gross Mattis, the new defensive lineman. Would you say
the defensive line?
Would you call that a net positive? The moves that they made on defense, given that you were third on defense last year, do you think that they're going to be, more talented this year, or do you think it's a net negative given who they lost?
No, I think it's positive. Again, I wasn't the biggest Armstead guy. I mean, but he was probably better than what I gave him credit for. But his injuries always lingered, especially towards the end of the year. They can't commit that money to a guy who may or may not be, probably isn't going to be full strength, even if he's having a really good year towards the end. But the entire thing was like to stop the run. I mean, they were not good against the run towards the end of the, really all year, but definitely middle to the end of the season. And I really like Leonard Floyd as a guy opposite of Bosa. I like Gross Matos. The one thing I saw too about Leonard Floyd is he doesn't miss games too.
Yeah, which is huge.
Yeah, and so we'll see. We'll see what they do at safety. They let Gibson go, so it's going to be Hufanga when he comes back, and Brown potentially. George Odom looks good in the preseason. They really like the guy they took. Malik Mustafa hits he's like another Hufanga.
Yeah, as we were saying, the tougher schedule, it definitely hurts them on defense. I mean, the more I look at that stretch at the end where they go, okay, Buffalo with Josh Allen, Rams, Stafford, Miami, electric offense, Detroit, like the defense has to significantly improve talent-wise by the second half and try to avoid injuries for them to finish strong enough to be the number 1 seed again. But it sounds like you're confident in that defense overall.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were. I mean, compared to what they were, I thought they were terrible last year. And you look at the numbers, it's like long way away from terrible. And on top of that, too, Nick Bosa had his standards, not a good year.
Yeah.
Like he admitted the holdout, like he got a slow start. I think he took him a long time to register. Like he didn't get his first sack until I think week 3 against the Giants, and it was because no one blocked him on a.
That's right. I remember that.
And I was just like, so I mean, hopefully he can get back to what he was 2 years ago when he won the Defensive Player of the Year, and yeah.
Number 3 against the run, number 14 against the pass.
I mean, it's the best 2 linebackers in football. I mean, everywhere. And again, Jake Moody will miss a kick or two, but like Jake Moody was a good pick. Like you could do a lot worse than him.
Made a freaking 58-yarder in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, The only I would say they're not. They have an average at best offensive line, which does scare me. And it goes to a pathetic.
I mean, it's not like McKivitz was much of a downgrade, if at all, from McGlinchey.
No, it's just like the Niners win the Super Bowl if they like block Chris Jones that play.
Yeah.
I just
and it's the same.
Brandon Ayuk is wide open. He made a good move. The corner fell. There's no one even around him in the end zone. But the play just goes to complete shit when Chris Jones is in the backfield in like 1.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's the right side. Center, right. And in general, they're just better run blockers than pass.
And I mean, frankly, unless you're Cleveland or Detroit, you're really not comfortable with the right side of your offensive line. I mean, nobody is. But yeah, it's nitpicking. It's still the best roster in the NFL. I got them going 13-4. You got them going 12-5. Although you say maybe 11-6 is a little more realistic given the schedule. But again, incredibly talented roster. They're going to be great again. Next, it's the Rams. 8th on offense, 19th on defense last year. Let's look at some additions. By the way, their over-under's 9, even to make the playoffs, 30-1 to win the Super Bowl. Jimmy G's the new backup quarterback there when he's done with his PED suspension. Come on, you're killing us, Jimmy.
Hey, he might come back. Week 3, the Niners head to LA.
Yeah, maybe Stafford gets hurt. Who knows who starts that game?
Because I saw crazy. Something like he had something was up with his arm or something, or like his leg, whatever it was, hamstring. Stafford. I'm like, oh boy.
We may
that would be full circle. The whole Jimmy experience as a Niner fan, then to be like, we're in LA playing the Rams, and there's Jimmy. I'd be like,
oh my God. The world has conspired for this to happen. Let's just look at the overall changes. Jonah Jackson, Boston Scott, Blake Corum on offense. I mean, the ceiling of the offense is high because Puka's really good, Kupp's really good, Kyron Williams is really good, and Stafford still has a cannon for an arm. But I feel like the floor is really low. If there's cluster injuries at wide receiver or like an injury to Stafford, this team could really bottom out. They lost maybe the best defensive player of his era in Aaron Donald, and then they added Tre'Davious White and Jared Verse. I mean, Raheem Morris is gone as defensive coordinator. I think it's a net negative big time. I think their defense is going to drop significantly. They were only 19th last year. Maybe they're mid-20s this year. And can a Stafford, Kupp, and Puka offense, it's hard, say that 3 times fast, can that play at a high enough level to get a bad defense to the playoffs? I mean, I have them at 10-7 just because that's assuming everybody stays healthy. Like I said, high ceiling, low floor. If there's significant injuries on this team, I can easily see them going like 4-13. Like it could happen if Stafford gets hurt, if Kupp and Puka Nacua get hurt, if multiple corners go down. Like this is a very thin team with a new defensive coordinator and an aging quarterback. Sky's the limit for them, I think, with a healthy core on offense, and if Kyron Williams stays healthy, I think he's the top 3 running back in the league if healthy. But again, another guy with a lengthy injury history. I'm going 10-7, assuming everyone's healthy. Like I said, they could really bottom out. Joey, what do you have for the Rams in 2024?
I also have them going 10-7. It's weird because I like that's a weird thing to say about the Rams, but I like what they have. It's weird to think you lose Aaron Donald and you're not like completely falling apart. They have an elite head coach. When they are healthy, that is a very dynamic offense.
Mm-hmm.
With McVay calling the plays, Stafford still. I mean, even if he can't move, he gets old or whatever. He's got. I mean, arm talent, one of the best ever.
Mm-hmm.
Really. 2 first-team All-Pro potential receivers. Kyron Williams, if he wasn't, if he had a year where McCaffrey didn't have the year he has, like a lot more talk about him.
Yeah,
he was really good.
Out of nowhere, just a beast.
Yeah, and but yeah, the defense. I mean, you take a big hit without Aaron Donald, and yeah, I think it's a loss with Raheem Morris leaving too, but I still because I thought was it last year I thought they'd be terrible or like
yeah,
and they were like it got to the point where I don't want to see them in January. So
Yeah.
I'm almost like, I remember that, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to miss this. I think but again, they were healthy.
You got one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in the NFL. You have to assume health, and you have to assume they're going to be good. I mean, McVay, he's had one bad year as a coach of the Rams. Every other year's been a successful one. Like, they're going to be good with him at head coach. As long as he's there and he has a functioning quarterback, they're going to be good. Let's look at Seattle real quick. The over-under is at 8, plus 165 to make the playoffs, 75 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Last year, they were 17th on offense, and a Pete Carroll team was 25th on defense. I think that's why his era ended there in Seattle. 25th from a Pete Carroll team is just unacceptable. On offense, some modest adds with 2 new starting guards. Sam Howell's the new backup quarterback. They lost Shane Waldron, who I thought, took some tough situations there in Seattle and got really good numbers out of it. I think that, it's going to be a mediocre offense. They're going to miss Waldron for sure. I just think the new coach, Mike Macdonald, I have already bet him at 12 to 1 to win coach of the year. I think that defense is going to go from 25th to maybe top 12, top 14. Maybe they stumble their way into the playoffs. I have them going 9-8. I just think Geno's good. Wide receiver core is really good. Running back room is pretty good. Offensive line, they found a few guys. They're going to start another rookie this year, but they've found some guys early in the draft who they're not paying all that much, who are really producing. Everything's there for the taking. They just needed the defense to be back to that Pete Carroll level. And by bringing in Mike Macdonald, a guy who led the number 1 defense in the league last year in Baltimore in terms of scoring, and who took what I thought was a pretty mediocre Baltimore secondary and had the number 1 pass defense in the league, I think the sky's the limit for Seattle in terms of defensive improvement. I just think that the offense without Waldron, maybe the ceiling is a little bit lower than it would have been, especially with Lockett's getting up there in age. Metcalf seems to always be injured. I have him 9-8. I feel like that's a little conservative, but I really do believe in this Macdonald guy. I think it's a great hire. I think it was time to say goodbye to Pete Carroll. All those great seasons, all the great stuff he did for Seattle. It was time. And I think Macdonald's a sneaky pick for coach of the year. So I got them at 9-8. Maybe they back their way into the playoffs and he gets some coach of the year votes. So Joey, what do you have for your chief rival, the Seattle Seahawks?
I have them going 8-9. Okay. I am like the opposite of the Rams. Last year I thought they'd be terrible, and then I thought Seattle would be really, really good last year.
Yeah.
And they just weren't, mostly because the defense. I really like the coach hire. I think Mike Macdonald is going to
it's a killer for people who have to name coaches. Mike Macdonald and Mike McDaniel. Oh.
It's a lot of Mikes. I think maybe Geno Smith's coming back to earth a bit, regressing to the mean, but and I think Mike Macdonald will move the help the defense out. But again, if you don't have the players, how much can you move it in 1 year? Yeah, but I think they go 8-9. It's weird. I think they have more talent than an 8-9 team, but I don't know, injuries, whatever. It's always
reports out of camp that Byron Murphy, who they took, I think he was the 2nd defensive player off the board in this year's draft, is supposed to be just an absolute monster. So if he's I'm not going to say like J.J. Watt or Aaron Donald level, but if he is the best defensive player from this draft class and they add Macdonald there, I think the defense is going to significantly improve. It's just, as you're saying, maybe a little bit of regression to the mean for Geno. These last 2 years, he's been playing out of his mind for a guy who was essentially out of the league prior to that. So, I think 8-9, 9-8. Those are solid picks. And then just quickly, let's go over Arizona. Over under is 7, plus 275 to make the playoffs, 100 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. I got them going 6-11. Kyler's back and healthy. I think the offense will be really improved. I think they got a revamped offensive line. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s added. I think James Conner's really underrated. He just stacks touchdowns and yards every year and doesn't really get hurt. I really like the guy. I just think that defense is going to get torched like basically every week, especially in a division with the Niners, with the Rams, in a conference where they're going to be facing quality quarterbacks almost every week. I think 6-11 is kind of generous. I think that's Gannon coaching for his job for them to get to at least 6 wins or he might get fired. They were 31st.
That just sucks. Like, I'm sorry. It's like, yeah, like I'm no like
He's in year 2.
he's in year 2. He's got a shit team. And he's like coaching for his job. How about get better players? I
That's what I'm saying. Is like I think he has a longer leash in that he could go 6-11 and they won't fire him. But if they're 4-13, 3-14 again, and the defense is anywhere near 31st for a guy who's a defensive specialist, it's got to improve. I mean, I think 6-11 is what will get him to keep his job. So that's what I had it at 6-11 because I think he's an okay coach. And this year he'll have Kyler for the whole season. So I got him at 6 wins. I think the defense. Minor improvement at best, maybe 28, something like that. I got them at 6-11. Joey, what do you have for the Cards?
Yeah, same. I got 6-11. I don't think they're going to be as bad as some of these other teams I got going 2, 3, 4 wins, but I don't see them getting to 7. No way.
It's a tough division. It's just
we played the North too. I mean, so you're playing Detroit, you're playing Green Bay. I mean, if Chicago's a good team, we'll see. Minnesota, does Sam Darnold have a day?
We shall see. So, all right, let's take one quick look at the NFC West again. I got the Niners going 13-4, followed by the Rams at 10-7, the Seahawks at 9-8, and the Cardinals at 6-11. Joey's got the Niners at 12-5, Rams at 10-7, Seahawks at 8-9, and the Cardinals also at 6-11. That's your NFC West preview here on the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. So, I mean, 7 of the 8 divisions that we've gone through have been basically chalk, not necessarily like chalk as to what the betting markets are, but chalk to you and I agreeing. It was just the AFC East where we had a big differing there. Let's go to your Jack and the Bum of the week. It's a tough one this week because there's not a lot going on after week 2 of the preseason. It's this period, August 21st through the Wednesday before the first game where just not a lot happens. There's going to be roster cut downs, but it's always some guy. Was he going to be the 4th safety? Was he going to be the 6th wide receiver? It's not a lot of drama, but there were still a few things I wanted to call out. I watched Hard Knocks, as I mentioned. Eberflus comes off as such a overconfident, it's a taskmaster Bill Parcells type head coach. The dude is 10-24 as an NFL head coach, and his crowning achievement is being the defensive coordinator for the Colts, who snuck into the playoffs with not a very good team. You would think, based on watching Hard Knocks, that he had won 10 playoff games and was a coach with a 550 career winning percentage. This is a guy who, if they start slow, will get fired. He was hired by a previous regime. He went 3-14 in his first year. I get that he's got Caleb Williams and this shiny roster, but it's he's no different from Robert Saleh. They tried to paint him as a good coach in Hard Knocks last year. These guys are going to get fired if they don't win immediately this year. So Eberflus, I get it. You got to talk the talk before you walk the walk, sure. But man, he just comes off as not a guy with a fire under his ass. He feels like in that, especially in that first episode, he's like, this is my house in Chicago right on the water, and I'm going to be here for years while we contend for Super Bowls. It's based on what? You have sucked ass consistently for the last 34 games. Show us something, Eberflus. Brandon Ayuk is on the list. As you said, put up or shut up time. You'd be in Pittsburgh right now if that's where you wanted to be. Make a decision, dude. The football is starting, and you're going to lose out on millions and millions of dollars if you don't make a decision here soon. And then John Fisher. I mean, this whole A's situation is just there are no words at this point. Basically, the Vegas thing is going to fall through. There is no support.
What's funny? Sorry, you can go on. Yeah, Brandon, John Fisher. The entire time until right now, you said the A's. I was like, A's? What is he talking about? I was thinking of Jeff Fisher. I'm like, what did he do? Is he in the? What happened? Is he in the news?
The king of 7 and 9, Jeff Fisher. I
just was like, what did he? Is he even in the league? I'm like, that's not even the same name guy. Whatever. Anyways, I literally said A's. I was like, what?
You're like, wait, what? No, it's just obviously I'm in the top 1% of people who get information on every single, A's thing that comes in the news. In Vegas, this guy Steve Hill, who basically is an A's lobbyist that tries to push this stadium through the legislature and through all the back channels and whatnot, he said, we're rounding third and heading for home. By all accounts, John Fisher needs $500 million of investors to get this deal over the line, and nobody has given him a penny. The Vegas thing is going to fall through. I am almost 100% confident in that. I think they're going to be stuck in Sacramento after this season, and who knows if there's the political will in Sacramento for a $1+ billion stadium for baseball in a town of 400,000 people in a region where there's not a lot of big money tech billionaires, where there's, you know, maybe a couple agricultural multimillionaires that can throw some money behind. It's such a tire fire. Sell the team, John. Jack in the bum of the week.
But if he sells it, isn't it just going to the Kings guy?
They're like, yeah, would Vivek be willing to? Because if he buys the A's, that's going to cost him reportedly over like $1 billion, like 1.2, something like that. Then on top of that,
the A's sell for 1.2 billion.
The A's should sell for $37. But say he buys the team, then he needs to raise another close to $1 billion in funding to build a stadium in Sacramento. It's like, are you going to go to some guy who owns a farm where they, you know, he's like, oh, he's had a good year for pork this year. Does he have $500 million to give me for a stadium? Like, it's just, I don't see it happening. It's like, to me, time for Joe Lacob to step up and put an offer in. But who knows? John Fisher, always a candidate for Jack in the Bum of the Week. Sell the team, you bum. But Joey, Jack in the Bum of the Week, someone we've been talking about a lot recently. It had to be him.
Yeah, I'm going with this week's Jack in the Bum of the Week for Arthur Smith, because the guy who seems to fail upwards. Well, maybe, I don't know. He was Atlanta's coach. He kind of went, obviously, got fired. Now OC for Pittsburgh. But yeah, I think Pittsburgh. Arthur Smith might take care of Mike Tomlin's always winning record streak. I think he's going to put that in the tank. I think they're headed for not just a poor season, but like a turbulent one.
Yeah.
In the
bad
news,
and not fun.
bad, not fun, and loud. Like, we're going to hear about it. Like,
Yeah.
The Steelers are a big brand. You know, they're going to be on some primetime games. They're going to be on the talk shows, and it's going to be a whole lot of Russ is
playing preseason week 3, by the way.
Russ or Fields, or does it even matter? Like,
I mean, he's your Jack in the Bum of the Week because of how bad they've been in these first 2 preseason games on offense. So bad.
Well, then he said it was like, it doesn't matter. But didn't he say? I saw something. He said something today. Like, he was like, "Oh, the preseason, like, it could." He said something to the extent like, "It could play games with your mind."
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it's not always the eye test isn't always right. I'm like,
week 1 at Atlanta.
Because I remember last year, didn't Pittsburgh go like 3-0 and like looked really good? And like week 1, I was like, "Oh man, Niners got to go to Pittsburgh." And then it was like, yep, that's Kenny Pickett.
Yep, they suck. No, this is an excellent pick because this is I think they may be the only team that's going to play a lot of starters in week 3 of the preseason, where they just got to see like how they can put an offense together. They're masking it as, we want to see if Wilson's fully healthy. We want to see how everybody gels on offense. Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. And by the way, while we're trashing Arthur Smith, I just want to point out, this is a guy whose dad is worth about $4 billion, who founded FedEx. Like, he did not need to work. He did not need to be a head coach.
Well, actually, you know what? I kind of have a little bit more respect for him then, because I probably would have just.
Well, why does he subject himself to this? Just sit at home on your $1 billion and just.
You know what? I would love to work a pretty high paying job in sports and be like, if I get fired, who cares? I don't need this job. I'm so good.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why he's like, screw Bijan Robinson. I'm giving it to Algier. Screw Kyle Pitts.
I don't know. I just thought about this, like, because I'm starting to hear even like the definitely the big Tomlin people, like, dude, it's been a long time since like Ben left.
Yeah.
And like he was mulling retirement for felt like 7 years before he actually did. And I don't know. I feel like they had Matt Canada. I feel like they have Todd Haley.
Yeah, Todd Haley used to take a lot of shit.
And it's like, why do you keep having to get new OCs? And like, why does Ben Johnson not want to work for you? Or like, I mean, he's not going to now. He's going to a head. But you know what I'm saying? Like, why?
But usually, I mean, when was the last time they had an offensive coordinator that? I mean, probably Bruce Arians that commanded respect.
Yeah,
like it's been a long time.
I don't know. Is that like, do people? I don't see. I don't believe for a second they don't want to work with Mike Tomlin as a guy, as a coach. But like, you go to that position on that team in that role, you're going to get fired, and you're going to get blamed,
and you're going to be hated by the local media and the fans.
Like, it's partly on ownership. Like, do they not want to pay certain guys? Like, Pittsburgh does seem like a very like defensive organization, I guess. Although, I mean, they've had really good offensive players too, but yeah, it's weird to me. Like, it's always the OC's fault. Maybe it's not. It's a terrible argument to have Arthur Smith on here and then say it's not his fault, but I don't know. I just like, my point is like, was Arthur Smith the best you could do? Like, as a hire?
He could have gone someone younger who more vertical passing attack, but he's basically coaching and will always be coaching the 2018-2019 Tennessee Titans offense wherever he goes. It's going to be pound the ball to whoever your version of Derrick Henry is and run play action.
I just don't believe in those types of coaches. Like, they're like, here's my scheme, we're going to run it. And I'm like,
or you could look at the players
coach,
you have.
Couldn't you, like, you have your tendencies, you have your schemes, but like, there's no doubt in my mind if Sean McVay had,
George Pickens,
No, I'm not even saying if Sean. I'm not forget Pittsburgh. I'm just gonna say, like, if Sean McVay had like just third. Just say I'm not gonna say a name. Third string quarterback, and say you had like great offensive line, like Derrick Henry. Say he had like fullback. Like, I think he could design and run an offense and be running in the I formation. Let's go.
It's like Henry and use check and two tight ends and go. Yeah.
I mean, again, say what you want about like Josh McDaniels as a head coach, but like, they were like running the short passing game with Brady, but they also, like, before he had the whole thing, they were running two tight ends with Gronk and Hernandez.
And before that, they were running and gunning with Randy Moss on the deep ball.
Yeah, like, okay, what else you do?
And before that, they ran it to Corey Dillon like 400 times a season. Yeah, they like changed with their roster.
Kyle, Sean, they all come from the same tree, but like, they understand football. Like, I mean, yeah, if if the league, this is so dumb, but it's like the only thing I think of as an argument, if the league outlawed motion, like you had to line up and just snap it and go, I think they could figure it out. They'd be fine.
Yeah. Arthur Smith would be like, oh God,
what Arthur Smith's like, let's get Tannehill, let's get Derrick Henry, and
let's get Delaney Walker. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I totally agree. Arthur Smith is just, unless they just come out flying week one against Atlanta and put up 30 points, it's going to be a talking point the entire season from the get-go. Just a stale offense, an old quarterback in Wilson, a young quarterback who can't throw in Justin Fields. I mean, it is not looking good there through two preseason games and through a few press conferences, frankly. Let's do a couple more You Like That picks of the week. These will be our last two season futures bets. We got Chicago under 9. I think the hype train's off the rails. This is similar to Joey's Jets pick earlier in the season. You have to expect failure from this franchise until you physically see otherwise. And then Seattle over 8. We're on Mike McDonald at 12-1 for Coach of the Year. I think the Rams might drop off enough to get Seattle to January. If there's any Rams injuries, the Seahawks will pick up on that. At least elite pass catchers, improved defense. I think a really solid coaching hire. Give me Seattle over 8. So there's your two final division preview podcast picks of the week. We got Chicago under 9 and Seattle over 8. Joey, your feels great baby, your wildest take. These are always tough to come up with, but there was recently a rule change, probably the biggest one in 30 years in the NFL, and you're not a fan of it.
Yeah, this might have been like the toughest feels great take because there ain't a lot going on. But I've seen enough of the kickoff, and it's a whole lot of just new rules to learn and new things to look at to just keep hearing, and they'll start at the 25 every time. And
you're not seeing any kickoffs being like broken out as you would expect. Like a guy.
Ironically, the first one I saw was when the Niners were in Tennessee. The Tennessee broke one off for I think they ended up at the Niners 30 or 25. But that's the Niners. They're just terrible on special teams sometimes. But other than that, it's just been stay still in the one line, wait for him to catch it, and then just run, smack it, 25.
And if it goes into the end zone, it's the 30, right? If it goes into the end zone, you start at the 30, and if the ball goes out of bounds, it's still the 40. But the key change is these guys are 5 yards from each other, set up at I believe the 35 and the 30. The opponent's 35 for the kicking team, and then the receiving team is at the 30. And they're just 10 guys or 9 guys, depending on what teams do, just lining up there and bashing into each other, trying to make a lane. I mean, it's an idea. I commend them for trying it, but it is bizarre.
Maybe we haven't seen what teams are really going to try and do in the regular season. Maybe, but
early returns.
Maybe, like I said, maybe the kickoff is gone in 5 years.
I'm surprised it isn't that way in college, where it's just I
kind of really like the whole thing. I don't know. I don't
like
know
college overtime.
Yeah, but I don't. I feel like if you don't have a kickoff, I'm what am I watching?
There's no foot in football.
I feel like I'm watching a scrimmage or something. I was just let's line up and practice goal line today. We're just gonna arbitrarily just put the ball somewhere. That's why I said
there has to be a kickoff. It's not football.
I don't know. Wouldn't it be kind of cool if you could based on the kickoff, how the kick itself went, determines where the other team starts. You kick from your own.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking. Yeah, you're you get bone. It's essentially
it's almost like an arcade game.
Yeah,
if you kick it from your own 25, and you Justin Tucker just kick a missile, and it goes through the field goal. The other team starts at the 5, but if you miss, they get it at the 40. So I don't know. And there's that. There's not just one. Thing.
Alternatives to the onside kick or something.
You can choose to kick it from your own 40, and be well, if you make it through the field goal, or you kick it, you can't do it a punt because if the ball is going out of bounds, it's a penalty.
Right.
So you can't do that whole try and pin them down at the 1. That's where they start.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you say depending on where you try and kick from, or angles or anything. I don't know.
I commend him for trying it, and I think we will find out week 1 because like you're saying, maybe teams aren't showing exactly what they're going to do on special teams already. Maybe there's going to be some teams with tricks up their sleeves in week 1, but I think we'll know by week 1, maybe week 2. We'll be either offense is up because there's lots of touchbacks at the 30 instead of the 25, or there's lots of kick returns that are actually getting serious positive yardage, or the whole thing's going to backfire and offenses are going to be starting inside their 25 rather than at the 25 more often, and points are down. We'll find out quick.
The one thing they did say that they've noticed is there are more returns.
Mm-hmm.
Because
not necessarily more yardage.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess I contradict myself, because it wasn't fun either just watching them bomb the kick. And it goes some of these kicks were going into road 2. Why do we even have a returner out there?
Well, they moved it from the 30 to the 35, 12 years ago?
Something like that.
Move it back to the 30 or even the 25. But then the argument, especially from the Players Association, is you get the most severe injuries in football on the kickoff play, which is why they moved it to the 35 and had more touchbacks, was quote-unquote player safety. They want more returns now, but they want them to be less injury prone. It's I understand it. This is a workaround to try to make the NFLPA happy and not affect, point totals and whatnot and lack of offense. But it's an odd
It's really
viewing
weird to look at on
experience.
TV when you see the kicker all by himself.
Oh, I can't wait to see a game with
It
my
looks
dad.
like somebody got a 50-yard penalty.
I can't. I was just saying I can't wait to see a game with my dad, and he'll be like, "What the fuck is that?" I just know it. Like the older generation of football fans are going to see that week 1 and be like, "What? That's not football." Like I see it coming.
Yeah, I even think too, like there's no more like, oh, running down the field. Like, they have like those like, oh, everyone
with the flash bulbs going
the
off.
Super Bowl. It's like, here it is. It's like, nah. Now
No,
it's
they
just
can't move.
They can't move.
Only the kicker can move. You're like, what? No, it's bizarre. And apparently this is a 1-year trial run, although everything starts as a 1-year trial run with NFL rules. But we'll see how it goes. I think it's better than doing nothing and continuing to have like the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Ravens. Basically, every kickoff is a touchback when you have a kicker with a massive leg. So it's like, okay, maybe this will introduce a little more variance. So I commend the NFL for giving it a shot, but we will know so quickly whether this is backfired or not, the new kickoff rule. We're running a little long here. Let's close the pod. Vikings and Niners takes. You said basically nothing new. It's still status quo with those contract situations, kind of dominating the camp. I want to hear what you've heard about that receiver, the 5th receiver in camp, who's really
Jacob Cowing?
Yeah.
Arizona? Yeah, he's not as thick as Deebo Samuel. I mean, it's a hard comp. Like with all the, other stuff he brings, just, let's just call it just brings that dog
juice. Yeah.
And he's just thinner. But yeah, he looks like a guy who could take some jet sweeps. They use him, like get him out in space. I don't think they'll ever put him at running back. Seems too small for me at least. But hey, what do I know? No, yeah, from what I read when they drafted him, they really liked him in the draft. And he's been more impressive than Ricky Pearsall, who can't seem to get on the field. But yeah, it's gonna be the Niners have a lot of receivers. Again, that's if Brandon Ayuk comes back, which I'm assuming he will. Yeah, because they're gonna have him, Deebo, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Cowing. They're gonna have. I don't say like a lot of good. I'm just saying like Danny Gray they drafted like 3rd round. Like, is he gonna get cut already? Like.
They draft him in 23?
No, because he was here with Lance. I want to say 22.
Yeah. He's got no playing time.
No.
Like none.
I remember I went to the preseason game. He caught the bomb from Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Touchdown. And everyone's like, oh my God. Whoa, never saw that again. From
either.
Catch. And just crazy because that's what everyone was like. Oh my God! Like, yeah, we got a guy at quarterback. Look at this speed burner. And then like, oh, anyone remember the 4th quarter? Remember the quarterback who played in the 4th quarter that preseason game?
He was okay. Yeah.
In number 14.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was when he that preseason game, he wore number 14 because 13 was taken, and then I don't know if they cut somebody or became available again, and he went to 13.
Wow, little known fact there. But you said essentially like coming out of camp, preseason, there's no every year there's at least 1 or 2 guys and is anyone on defense popping I've heard Jair Brown.
Mustafa.
Yeah. Okay.
He's like another. They have a type at safety. They're not big on the like Ed Reed, Earl Thomas. Well, I mean, of course they like them, but like, the like free safety, cover the whole field distance, like the center fielder.
Yeah.
No, the Niners are looking for a heat-seeking missile. That's
a thumper. Yeah.
And they might have 3 of them. Some plays they should probably want to cover. There's general space back there sometimes. But no, a couple of
on running
hits.
downs, yeah.
huge, like, oh, there was a like 4th and goal, or 4th and 1. It wasn't 4th and goal, it was 4th and 1, I think, against Tennessee. They ran it, and Mustafa came down and just car wreck. Just like smash. Him,
So
no, I
you
mean,
think
with the
he'll
Niners,
play
like with the Niners, with how the roster and everything, like me, I don't want to hear anything. I just want to hear week 1, everyone's healthy for the most part. I don't care.
everyone signed a contract?
I don't care. I don't care what happened. I do not care.
Yeah, just get there and be healthy. And that's all you're asking for when you're a contending team. When you're the Vikings and you're, on the absolute fringes of contention and year 1 of a rebuild or year 0 now that with the McCarthy injury, you just want to see, okay, maybe some young guys are popping. We got this guy, Levi Drake Rodriguez, who we drafted in the 7th round, who I've watched his highlights through 2 preseason games, and he may not start at all year 1, but he has that like motor that you just wish every player on your team had, where it's a preseason game and it's 3rd and 8 and the other team is playing their 4th string quarterback. To him, it's the Super Bowl, and he just mauls backup linemen and just goes in the backfield, hits the guy, hits a huge celebration. His teammates all surround him, and then he goes back and does it again on the next drive. Like, he's been exciting to watch. This guy Dwight McLaughlin, 7th undrafted free agent, might make the team at corner. He's been really good. Lewis Seen, who our failed 1st round pick from 2022, who I would say 98% chance we were going to cut him this preseason. He had the best game of his life against Cleveland. Everybody saw his hit against, I think it was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, or no, it was Tyler Huntley, against Huntley. I mean, the hardest hit I've seen in a preseason game in a long time. Really pissed off the Browns, but I think he's like, I'm going to lose my job unless I start doing some crazy shit. And he had a pick, he had a sack, he had an unbelievable hit on Huntley, who was trying to take a run around the right side. So he's impressed a little bit. So now that makes it like 6 safeties that we might have to keep. The media is really coming around on us being a top 10 defense. I think this whole Flores drama with Tua coming out and saying he crushed my spirit, and the Vikings having a press conference yesterday with Flores where 2 Vikings, I think it was Harrison Phillips and Ivan Pace, basically
I didn't see it, but I read it. I was like, this is like, we go. I don't know.
They stood next to him like his bodyguards to show him support. I'm like, I side with Flores in this thing all of a sudden. Like, I think this defense is going to be awesome. I think he's got the biggest chip on his shoulder with, number 1, his lawsuit against the NFL over discrimination. Number 2, this whole thing with Tua over his head now.
He better not know Tua's in that jury or whatever. Or like, like.
The Vikings don't play Miami this year, but if we did, I mean, watch out for 0 blitzes all game long. The media is coming around on us in terms of defense. I think we're not going to be very good on offense. Everybody knows that Darnold turns the ball over. Maybe we catch lightning in a bottle there, and it's Case Keenum 2.0, which I would love. But I think we're going to be a middling team. But I think we have that 2023 Cleveland Browns level defense if everything goes right, to where you don't really need much quarterback play to make the playoffs. So really hopeful on the Vikings defense. I don't know if we get there to the playoffs. I don't know if we get to have a top 5 defensive unit for the first time since like 2017 with Mike Zimmer, but I'm really starting to believe in this defense, especially with bringing Gilmore in and solidifying the cornerback position. So big hopes for the Vikes on defense. We'll see if Sam Darnold can find not necessarily the fountain of youth, because he's still only 26, but can find something that he hasn't found since his college days. We got one more pod before the season starts. That's going to drop in about a week and a half. We're going to do that maybe 2 or 3 days before that first game, Kansas City, Baltimore, where we do all of our predictions. We're going to go through over these last 4 pods, all the records that we have. I'm going to tell Joey before the pod, hey, here's the records that you had. Here's how the bracket would shake out for you. Tell us who's winning the Super Bowl. We're going to give our picks for all the awards. Really excited for that pod, because then we get to really put ourselves, out on a limb and say, I think this guy's winning the MVP. I think this is the divisional round playoffs. I think these are the conference champions. I think this is the Super Bowl result. I think this guy's going to win Rookie of the Year. I love doing that. We're going to do that in about a week and a half. I think it's going to drop on the 3rd, a couple days before the season starts, for all our NFL fans who listen to us. Yeah, really excited about that pod. So we'll see you then. Until then, this has been another episode of the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. Erik Stenholm signing off.